welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today, Louis D'Souza and Amy Blackford. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And welcome to the show. And we're still getting used to how this live stream works on StreamYard, but I'm getting better at it. Guys. So this is a good thing. The only thing that is not so good, I still see the video on there, so I haven't quite figured that part out. But hopefully, it's going to iron itself out. Meanwhile, I'll bring on my co-hosts here, Louis and Amy. How you guys doing?
Hi, guys.
You're looking good. Everybody's looking quite refreshed there, and Louis got himself a new background that he's messing with. So if you're wondering about why, that's what's going on there.
Louis is going to end up.
We do indeed. So, Amy, you came up with an interesting idea, not only for a show today, but also for kind of a series of shows.
Yeah, I'm thrilled just to have a little bit of, just as a conversation starter. It's called my Warrior Rules, and I started.
Where did that name come from? I gotta know where the name comes from.
Honestly,
Warrior Rules.
Okay, so one of the first spiritual books that I ever read was by Dan McMillan, the Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
Oh, okay. And
basically, whenever I would have something come up that was a life challenge or an insight that I would have, instead of just because I'm a writer, instead of just posting it on Facebook, I would basically wait until I had digested what had happened and had a spiritual insight, and I would frame it in a way. I say warrior rule, meaning we're kind of all in this state. It's not an external war. It's an internal one that we're having in our own minds. So that's what I mean when I say warrior. I'm not talking about physical, going into battle. It's really the battle that we're all kind of having in our own minds. So it's perfectly aligned with what we talk about here on the show.
Well, I don't know about you. I'm always trying to be at peace with my own mind. I'm not trying to go to war with myself.
But that's where the name came from. And basically, I started posting these a long time ago on Facebook. I'm up to like number 83 or 84.
Ooh.
And I decided a year ago, I really wanted a blog dedicated to them. And I've got up to number 17 right now. And at the end of every blog entry is what I call the Warrior Challenge. And for, anybody that's reading the blog, anybody that's listening right now can take this little activity or experiment, like you were saying, to apply what I'm talking about to their own life. So I thought it would be a fun way for us to just have a little bit of a series here where we'll start with number one.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say that they're random, but these insights just came to me in the order, that
they did,
obviously starting at number one. So we went over number 17 last week, which was forgiveness. And today is nothing is impossible until you say it is. That's like Law of Attraction 101.
Okay.
So the basis around this concept for me is I feel like when I first started opening up spiritually, it was a huge awakening for me to realize that anything that was in my life that I did not like, I had created, just like the things that I did. And I think a lot of people walk around with a whole list of things they never got to do. And rarely do they say, I'm the reason that this didn't happen. It's always a life circumstance. They blame it on others. And so that's what this first warrior rule is really about, is taking ownership for. You're in the driver's seat. You are not just this passive, you're just sitting in the, passenger seat and somebody else is driving you around. You are an active participant. And if you want certain things, whether they're material things, life experiences, a mate, it doesn't, relationships, it doesn't matter what it is, fill in the blank. Nothing is impossible to have unless you say it. And so if you can believe it, you can achieve it. And so at the end of, of our discussion today, I will present our audience listeners with a challenge. And then maybe next week, to start off, they could write in and let us know, how did this work for them? Did they enjoy it?
Yeah, by all means. In fact, we encourage listeners at all times to share any kind of insights that you have, or questions, or responses, or
Right.
something you disagree with. Anything, just take advantage of the fact. Send in an email, or use the LOA Today app and send in a comment that way, because we do want to include everybody in the conversation. But so all right, so let's go to when you were first posting this. Of course, this was a while back, so I'm going to ask you to tax your memory a little bit here to see if you can remember exactly where your state of mind was. But do you remember what you were thinking about? What kind of motivated you to write this thing, and what was the lesson, the takeaway that you were getting that you wanted to share with the world at that point?
Okay, so I want to say when the first one came to me, I had basically just gotten laid off. I was an art teacher at Brandon Hall. And this is the first job that I really loved. I had gone from college, got my 2 books published because I won that national competition I told you about. And I spent about 2 years, touring and doing author visits, and I just wasn't making an income off of it. And so this school hired me because I went in and did an author visit. So I ended up basically manifesting this job because I was so in the place of when I won this competition, I was starting to really practice the law of attraction. And I saw it work in such a major way that I was really jazzed about it. So when the whole idea of, okay, well, I'm not making money off the books, what's the next best thing? I love teaching. And one of the schools I went in to bring him books, and the headmaster said, by the way, would you be interested in working as our full-time art teacher? We just got notified that she's leaving. And it was the dream job for 2 years. And so when I got laid off, I was really upset. And I didn't know what I was going to do because the school was not in a good state financially. They basically they didn't pay my summer contract money. And so I went right. So I was literally spending the last of my paycheck. Didn't have credit cards at the time. I had no savings. And so I told myself, all right, this is the time in your life you're going to really start having to apply this stuff. Like, this is it. You've been reading about it, but now you're in a situation where, do you really believe it? You've got to apply it.
Yeah.
And that's where it began.
Okay. And what were the conclusions you drew as you were writing your piece? I mean, your piece, it sounds like from the title that you had kind of hit on a little breakthrough idea.
I basically realized that the things that were blocking me were the beliefs that I was holding. And that was digging deeper into, because at this point, the secret was really all I had that I was going on with the law of attraction.
I know that feeling.
And I started listening to Abraham Hicks, and that's when I was like, okay, it's my thoughts. I'm literally, when I started tuning into my own thoughts, I realized I feel like I'm a warrior. I'm at war, and it's me against me in here. And I really want to tame this wild beast that is my mind so that I can start achieving the things that I want. Because I was in one of those situations where it was like, I have a child to support. This is real. I need to manifest quick. And I'm really happy to say it worked, especially when I started listening to Abraham Hicks. But that's where the idea for the warrior rules came from. It was a way of me processing as I would come to these different insights, and I would want to share them with people. I'm just like we're doing here, and it was a way of me being able to write them down. So they were very simplistic.
Well, you're journaling.
Say that again.
I said you were journaling. That literally, you're actually doing the best kind of journaling. You're actually writing it in a way that everybody else could benefit from, not just you, right?
At first, I was just posting them on Facebook, to the point I have one of my best friends. His name is Jesse. He asked me, he was like, are you getting these out of a book, or like, are you coming up with them? Because they were very random. And I'm like, no, I'm actually making these up as I go. So I do have a vision. I'm like, first, let me start the blog because it's immediate. I know, writing fiction and getting published, it has been a slow process. Things are actually starting to move much quicker now. But my whole point is that this is work I wanted to get out there now, make it immediate. So I started the blog, and I mean, it's free material that people can also access.
Yeah.
Use these challenges to kind of start applying, because that's the other big thing I know all three of us can agree on. I mean, you can have all this knowledge, but if you don't use it and apply it, it absolutely means nothing. It doesn't do anything.
I had a friend in school who used to claim that if you can't apply it, you don't really know it.
Right.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
Exactly.
So let's share the insights you had that day. What did you come up with?
Well, that is the insight, is basically I wrote a list, and that is the first challenge for anybody that's listening right now, is to make a list of all of the things that I want and I have not yet achieved. Now, the key is, what is the belief that I've been, basically, what is the excuse that I have been giving myself? It doesn't matter what it is. What is the excuse and the little story that I've got going mentally that is keeping me from achieving that thing? Because you'd be really surprised. And I also invite people, start with the smallest thing. It's like trying to manifest, a cup of coffee as opposed to a car or a house. You want to try and start with small things, especially if this is new to you, like taking ownership. Oh, my mind creates my reality. And if I just change the belief that I can actually have these things, that's a huge belief to change. You literally are the only thing standing in your way of anything that you want.
Well, I think that's why people start with parking places, because that's a relatively easy thing to start with,
Because you're not really attached to something like that.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, so for
well,
me,
actually, I was. I don't know about you. I was actually attached to him at first, and I couldn't get him at first. It wasn't until I realized, I got to let go of that attachment. Yeah, then it started to work.
I can say currently for me, the biggest way that I've been applying this belief is in publishing, because I've been going at this now for 20 years, and you get told a lot. It's very competitive. It's very hard. These are beliefs. They are very revalidating as you're going through it. And I've recently decided I'm not going to have to go through a hard time, that when it's my time, it's going to click beautifully and perfectly, and it's going to sync up. And as I've been basically reframing the way that I'm looking at this, things just are, they've been clicking together really for the last year for me around getting my books out, because it's a huge part of my life. I would say it's my biggest current achievement, dream, physical manifestation that I've been working very hard at, that I'm so excited to see it happen. And I know the quicker I can get any limiting beliefs that I have around it worked out, the better. So I started avoiding some conferences. I won't name them here. I'm not trying to put anybody on blast, but there were certain places I would go, and it would instigate, this is so hard. They're just revalidating it. They're teaching it to me. This is going to be difficult. And so I started pulling away from those types of things involved with publishing, and started now I'm in a really supportive community where it's not just fun. Everything feels like it's clicking together very easily. And so I can say this stuff really 100% works.
Nice.
And you can apply it to everything.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's great, though. That you did a couple things that were really important there. One of my favorite things to do is to prune out relationships that don't work. And that's exactly what you did.
Yes.
You pruned out relationships that did not work for you. And as soon as you did that, well, as we all know from the Abraham Hicks teachings, once you are clear on what you don't want, it becomes very easy to identify what you do want.
Yes.
You were there really quickly, and hey, they showed up. How about that?
Well, but yeah, basically, I withdrew completely from writing groups, any sort of critiquing conferences, because I just kept getting that revalidation of, this isn't fun. It's hard. It's probably never going to happen. And I could tell it was really just reinforcing a negative belief system that I was trying to change. So, yeah.
I think we've been there. I'm wondering, Louis, first of all, hi, Louis. We haven't actually heard from you yet.
Hi,
Louis. And secondly, I'm
here as well.
Does this story sound familiar to you when you first were learning how all this stuff worked, that you went through the same kind of thing that Amy was describing just now?
Yeah. I think anybody who starts working with the law of attraction goes through something similar. But as you go down the route, you become quite adept at it. So just to give you an example, so 3 or 4 examples of just the last couple of days is took the kids to the park yesterday, and there is a church there, and it's a little road, and there's about 5 or 6 parking bays, and the place is always jam-packed. I mean, especially now, everybody's come out of COVID lockdown, and
Yep.
everybody's going to the parks, and you know, there's a row of 4 or 5 car parks there, and I've always got in my mind we'll get one of them. And today my wife was looking, yesterday when my wife was looking there, and she said, no, they're all full. And I said, no, it'll work out. And I'm turning around the corner, and then suddenly one of the cars comes out at that precise moment and says to me,
Of course.
one on the end, there's
Love
one on
it.
the end for you.
That's
And it's
perfect.
just like, and it happens every time at that place, every single time. And then, you know, when we were off to Wales on a holiday, we were driving, and we were on the M25. Now, the M25 is world renowned to be called the biggest car park in the world. It's this big superhighway around London, and we driving, and Google says 21-minute delay, and I said, oh no. And I said,
Oh,
let
no.
me sweep it clean. So I've got this LOA technique that I literally take a broom in my mind and I sweep the entire road clean.
Oh, nice. I
Oh,
like
I
it.
like that. That's a cool
Yeah, it's
visualization
really
technique.
cool one. And you know, I just completely forgot about it. I was like quite happy. I mean, we had a bit of time. There was no stress whatsoever. You know, if I had to sit there for 20 minutes. But my wife says to me a few minutes later, "Wow, that LOA of yours is damn good. Look, it's gone down to 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes was really the amount of time it would have taken to drive from there to there. So to just cleared it up, everybody started moving, and we were zooped through it. And I was like,
That's fantastic.
you know, it's the M25, guys. It just doesn't happen.
Right, exactly.
And then my wife was saying, you know, when we get to this place, I'm really not sure if we're going to have a parking bay anywhere near. And I said, yeah, no, well, let's just see. I mean, you know, it's got a huge amount of kind of like, it's not caravans, they're kind of between mobile homes. They're mobile homes, really. There's a whole bunch of these mobile homes in this holiday setting, and we just happened to get one one or two back from the beach, the kind of beachfront area, and we got a parking bay for the Jaguar right in front of it.
Nice.
And literally, it was like 2 steps from the boot to the door. And it couldn't be closer, and this is a massive place, and it couldn't have been closer to get to the nearest entrance to the sea, you know.
Oh, wow. Nice.
We could have got, you know, we could have got 1 or 2 more closer, but it just, you know, the amount of size this place is and how close that was.
In other words, to put it in context, you were so close that if tide was up, you could have swum back to the car, is what you're basically
Almost,
saying.
yeah. So the other thing was the whole beach area. It's very wet. So in other words, on this area, the beach only really appears when the tide is out, and you know the tide doesn't have to go out much before you've already got some beach. So it is a little bit wet, but it's beautiful. You know, you just put your feet in it, and you can just feel this energy just drawing up into you. And I've never been to a place besides once before that I felt so energized. You know, my wife and I decided to take a drive one day, and halfway through the drive and the other beaches and the other places, we said we want to go back to the place where we were, which we had booked and where we were at, because it was so much better than anything else around. We went for a little walk, and you landed up in this incredible town, and I said, let's go to the local chippy. I don't know do you know what a chippy is?
No.
Fish and chip place.
Okay.
Okay.
You go to the local chippy, guys.
Food. Okay.
So I
just
said
added
I want the
something.
best local chippy. I don't want any local chippy. And,
Right.
you know, we were walking past. No, not that one. No, not that one. Yes, that one. And we had the most amazing fish and chips. It was just really good.
This is cool. I just added a new term to my vocabulary. That's really good.
A chippy.
Yeah.
Got to go down to your local chippy.
Go to the chippy. Yeah. They'll have no idea what we're talking about here, but that's all right.
Yeah, don't worry. It's not McDonald's. Don't worry.
No, thank
No.
goodness.
It doesn't sound like it.
If it was McDonald's, I wouldn't go near it. So, oh, sorry, that's a reverse endorsement. I forgot.
You're talking about LOA here, Walt.
That's right. That's cool, though. I
So,
love
so
that.
then I go to the health club yesterday with the kids, and I managed to get into the jacuzzi, which is so cool, as I've missed it like terribly. The sauna and steam room are still off limits until for another month. So annoyed with, but
LOA, LOA.
yeah.
You can achieve it if you believe
Some
it.
things are beyond my control. No. So I go in there, and I had this incredible chat to this lady. She was so engrossed in all the LOA concepts and ideas, and she was so ripe for it. It was unbelievable. Then yesterday at the park, the one where I got this parking, I'm sitting there waiting for my wife to get something at the shop, some ice creams and things, and I get this guy with his dog. And we have this most amazing conversation. He had already heard of LOA. He had a basic idea of it. And I just expanded it and exploded it for him. And he was so happy. He just left his job, starting his own business from home. I was just the right person at the right place at the right time for him.
I love that.
And what I love is I'm noticing, from the one person that came into the jacuzzi with me, the one person that sat down on my table, they were ripe for the message, and I
Right.
get that all the time now. It's just never stops, and I just love it. I mean,
That's
it's so
fabulous.
exciting to get other people waking up to the ideas, and the basics.
Even in my author group, it's the same thing. When there's people in there talking about this. I don't know why that would surprise me, but it is becoming there. More and more people are starting to grasp onto the concept and really understand that it really works. Anybody that practices it, I mean, you'll see for yourself that this isn't. We're not just sitting here trying to make you feel better about your life. You actually have so much more control than you realize.
Oh, well, that's been a theme here on the show for the last 2 weeks or so, because we've been trying to do more and more practical exercises
Yes.
that the audience can participate in, particularly on the Wednesday shows, where we've been actively as a group, saying, okay, here's what I'm going to manifest in the next 48 hours rather, or something along that line, and getting it. I mean, that was the really cool part. We're actually all getting the stuff that we're asking for.
That's great.
So yeah, and we encourage the listeners to participate as well, and to send in their wins as they're listening in. But you're right, this is practical stuff. This isn't just theory.
No, exactly.
There'd be no point in doing this if this were just theory.
No.
Walter, I've just done veggie beds. Now we've done it with railway sleepers, so you can imagine it's big, hefty pieces of wood you're moving around, and we've made the most gorgeous veggie bed number one
Nice.
done.
Well, number one. Oh, more than one coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Some
it's a
serious
huge
veggie bedding going on here.
But
What's
you
a
know, the
veggie
cutting,
bed? What is that?
The
a
garden bed.
vegetable.
Oh, your garden. Okay, got it. Got it.
We're not that
Imagining an
antiquated here in
actual bed.
America.
I'm taking it completely literally.
You don't know what veggies are.
No, I do
Americans
know what
only eat meat,
veggies are.
Too much time spent at McDonald's. That's the
Mr.
problem.
Sarcasm.
So, when you're cutting wood and when you're working with your hands, and I'm not doing this all day, every day, guys, I'm usually in front of a computer. So I know whenever I do handiwork, I'm usually hitting my hand, I'm stubbing my toe, I'm dropping things, I'm losing things, I'm getting angry and frustrated. And only because of LOA, I've started to realize that if I'm ever getting anywhere antsy in any shape or form, I give it up. I go inside,
Yes.
make a cup of tea,
Walk
and
away.
I don't do anything. And everything is cut perfectly. Everything fits together perfectly.
Yes.
I've spent a lot of time visualizing where the holes and who's going to go where and what's going to work, and how everything fits together and how we're going to move things. And when you get to actually doing it, things just flow. Oh, the wood comes at the right time, and this comes at and this falls in place, and the screws are here. I had to countersink a few holes, and all the rest of it to make it flush and all that. But everything just starts fitting in and working. And any time I said to my wife twice in the last, well, during the period that we've done it, but it was before we went on holiday and after. I said to her twice, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm getting a little bit antsy. And I just packed it up. And, I've got no problem now in doing that every single time.
I'm the
good.
same way
When
with
you're
my
your own boss.
writing.
It's easy when you're your own boss. But I
Exactly.
can imagine all those
It
guys
is.
that have got 9-to-5ers saying, yeah, my boss is going to.
Basically,
Yeah.
when you start getting that angsty, anxious energy, that things are so much harder and move so much slower. So I've just learned I'm more productive. When I start losing focus and it no longer feels good, that means I need to switch, like what you're saying. It's time for me to switch whatever I'm focusing on. Because my ability to have things click into place really effortlessly and the best outcome to come out of it really starts to diminish. So like even when I'm working on something like my book and editing, when I'm plugged in, and this is a book I've been working on for 5 years, how can I still get excited? But I do. And when I lose that sense of excitement, I stop, because it's like, things are not gonna flow. And if it doesn't feel good, I quit doing it. And I know a lot of people say, well, that's real nice, because I work from home. I have the luxury of doing that. But I think even when I didn't, when I was a nanny, and that's when I first started listening to Abraham Hicks, that was another thing. I think I've told you this story before. I had to keep the job, but I realized I had to quit reacting. The kids were, both of them were
Right.
very difficult, and I loved them both, but they were a challenge. And I used to teach a lot of kids, and just the two of them together, they really gave me a run for my money, that's for sure. And when I was listening, I would listen to Abraham Hicks. By the time I left that job, it was literally like I was in a parallel version. The relationships with the children, how they were behaving with me, everything was so peaceful. And that's when
And
I
it had
ended up
nothing to do
leaving.
with them.
Huh?
It had nothing to do with them.
I know. It was
that's the
it
thing
was
that really
100%.
strikes you afterwards.
I was able to change instead of trying to say, okay, I'm going to find a different job. And that was too much for my mind. So that's another thing to bring back to this principle is when you want something, it may take several steps for you to see that you can actually achieve it. So, going from you don't even have a book written, I'm going to have a New York Times bestseller. You might want to have some steps in between, like writing the book, finding a literary agent, some realistic steps in between the manifestations. And so for me, instead of me trying to because I couldn't honestly conceptualize finding a different job at that time, I said, okay, instead I want to change the experience that I'm having with this particular work.
That was a good idea, by the way.
And then what's so crazy is once I did that, literally 2 months later, I ended up starting work full time for my husband, he was my ex-husband at the time, and getting to work from home and being home with my kid full time. So it was like almost like once I had gotten to that level of manifesting, okay, I've now manifested this job to be as perfect as it's going to be, then the new one just moved right in. And so I think there's those steps that logical steps, with the bigger things that people want. But if you believe that you can have these things, it really opens a gateway. So many people have these dreams or things that they want, and they just have a list of excuses as to why it can't happen. They can't do it. It's impossible. And I just want to encourage everyone to really challenge that and understand the only thing that's keeping you from it is that belief.
And I know that one really well. By the way, I want to make a note here. I was really glad to hear, Louis, that you actually do have periods where you're ready to throw the towel in and throw the chairs and things like that, because everything I've ever seen here on the show is how cool you are, and everything's just life is just wonderful. It's nice to know that there's a human side. So thank you very much for that part of the story. But I also wanted to...
the thing that happens once you become good with all this, Walter, is the periods of angst, annoyance, etc. is so small.
That's true.
Literally, with those two incidences I was talking about with building the veggie beds, the recovery time was so quick. I had a cup of tea, I sat down on the sofa, and it was already completely gone, but I just decided to be lazy and just sit down there. But you really do recover so quickly, and
Yeah.
you really start finding that you need to push yourself to different and higher challenges.
That's
Yes.
true. Yeah.
And because what you're doing is you're still learning through contrast, so you've got to start working with contrast. So if you're working between hope and expectation, there's really not a lot of negativity around that I can say, well, it was really terrible, and there becomes less and less of that as you go along. But it's never eliminated. If it's eliminated, you're not human anymore, and you've gone into non-physical. So,
Well, the fact that you actually admitted that you did have the experience made me feel a lot better, especially since I had one of those incidents earlier today. So, it just kind of like, well, good. I'm not the only one who's human here. Everybody is human. This is good.
Oh
I
my
like that.
goodness. I'm on a constant roller
okay, well,
coaster.
I'll tell you
I
about all those
people that all
terrible
the
times.
But I'll tell you something else that was interesting, because when I had my moment today, and it lasted about 10, 15 minutes, something like that. While I was in it, I was really kind of, I don't know, like it was like on a throwback to earlier times where I went back to the old feeling of, oh God, I can't get out of this. I'm stuck here. I can't even begin to see how to change my thought process, how to change my feeling process, even though I now know I can do it. In fact, I've got plenty of history doing it. But the mindset, I fell right back into it for about that 10-minute period. It was amazing how strong it was. Well, it's okay.
Yeah.
For me, it was more just a reminder of, for those people who are still learning it, it's pretty daunting. I mean, that's what I was remembering. It's like, wow, this is a really strong feeling of, oh my God, I'm so trapped here. I'm just saying, it's a reminder for me.
Yeah, it is very, very powerful because those old vibrations are still active in your
Yes.
in your, I don't want to say subconscious. I hate that word.
I know you do.
in your
memory
force field.
Your field of energy of memory.
So in your vibrational history.
There you go. That's
Okay.
nice. That's a good way to phrase it.
Vibrational library.
Library, yes.
And what you're doing is you're now going back into the past. You're taking that vibration and you're bringing it into the present.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such an active one that it really can make you feel sticky in that place. And it's quite valid,
Sticky's a good word for it too, because that's really what it feels like. You just feel stuck. Like,
yeah.
That's been, and me this year, I have to say, has probably been one of the most high contrast years, pandemic aside. I know that's probably the case for many people, but I mean, just for me on a personal level, seeing, just to give an example, here the books and my author thing has just been going beautifully. I've honestly never felt more satisfied with it because of the community that I'm involved in. And it just feels like this very immersive experience before it was very solitary. So there's this thing that I love so much and is so fulfilling, and I'm really getting that. But on the flip side of that, some of the physical challenges, moving. So this year, there have been a list of things where I have honestly felt more out of sorts with myself. And it's been this wild little bit of a disorienting roller coaster ride because I keep going from these very high, just woo, this is amazing, to riding it down, plummeting, like almost the G-force is just so strong. And I'm like, right now I'm at a place I'm looking for a little bit of neutrality. I'm really, honestly, I'm like, okay, I need to get on the kiddie coaster for a minute.
Yeah.
I've been flip-flopping and doing the loop-de-loos. It's been a thrill ride. I'm needing, and that's okay to admit that.
Sometimes you just have to walk away from the midway. Basically, you just have to walk away from the midway entirely and go, check out a quiet stand over by the restroom, because, it can be so disorienting if you just stay in that for too long.
And I think it's important for people to hear that, especially that are just now getting involved in this, when they see people that have been applying the law of attraction, like, how am I ever going to get there? And like you were saying, are you even human, that you have this kind of outlook? And it's like, we still have bad days.
Louis not human, he says.
I'm an alien. We still have bad days. We still get grumpy. I mean, I do. I experience all of the emotions. I'm not past any of them. I just know how to shift very quickly. And
Okay.
so I let myself feel things, but then I moved. Like if it doesn't feel good, I'll move through it really quick.
I got to tell you guys a story that happened starting this past Thursday, because we've opened Louise's gardening business for the season,
Oh,
and we
yeah.
got a crew out there, and I was realizing pretty quickly that we were going to need to add at least one staff member, and probably two by the time we get to like June or July. But I wasn't really quite ready to add two that quickly, and brought in two people for interviews and loved both of them. Louise and I absolutely fell in love with both of them. Like, oh, they're fabulous. And the first thought that goes to my mind is, oh my God, how do we hire both of them right now? I'm not sure if we're going to have enough work to do it. We're going to have it at some point. I'm just not sure if we're going to have it yet. But we kind of talked ourselves into it, and we stayed in that excited zone, and we ultimately said, okay, we're going to do this. And we hired both of them, and we're thinking about, okay, where can we do a little more promotion and so forth so we can make sure everything works. And then we went through the steps of, the paperwork they have to do, because there's all the employment forms and all that kind of stuff, and gave the forms to the one we had interviewed second, and didn't hear from her within the time frame she said she was going to get back to us. And then late yesterday, got a text from her saying that her old boss had made her an offer, a mafia type of offer, one that you can't refuse.
Got it.
And and all of a sudden, this person who was going to join us was no longer going to join us. And for a moment, I was depressed. Like, oh my God. So the roller coaster, right? You have this really big high, and then you fall right down to the bottom. Until I realized, well, wait a minute, we hired two people. We actually are getting the one person that I did want to have, but I kind of skipped over that part. Like, oh my God, I have these two. It was so wonderful. They were great people. I lost one already. Oh no, the world is ending.
Right. Your brain just went right to that.
And then I remembered that, no, that's not the way it works here. I'm okay. We're good. And everything righted itself. And, we're going to have our new person starting on Wednesday. It's all good.
Oh,
but
awesome.
boy, oh boy, it's so easy to fall into that downward spiral fast.
It is.
And then remember that you don't have to stay there.
Right. And the key, everyone listening, is the longer you let it go on, the harder it is to get out of it. That is 100% true. The momentum going up is very strong. The momentum going down is just as strong. And what does Abraham say? It's like trying to stop a car going downhill. At a certain point, just get out of its way and let it crash.
Yeah, that's exactly the image that I have. For me, it's a rock rather than a car. It works either way. I mean, either one you don't want to be in front of at the bottom of the hill, put it that way.
Yes.
And that's the one that I always have. I see this rock rolling down the hill, and it's like, okay, where am I on the hill? If I'm near the bottom, move left or right. Don't stay there.
Get out of the way.
Don't try to stop it. Just get out of the way.
So, that reminds me of an experience I had. I was working for Chase Manhattan Bank during my blue-collar days when I was working in the IT industry. So I had this job, and I wasn't enjoying Chase Manhattan Bank that much. It wasn't.
That doesn't surprise me for some reason.
When I tell you I went next, you'll still be even more surprised. But so I was sitting there. It was coming up to Christmas. I had booked my holiday, and I was looking for other jobs. And I went for this interview. I went for a lot of interviews. I mean, as an IT contractor, you're more qualified in sitting in front of somebody who's interviewing you than they are interviewing you. You've really had a lot of interviews. And I had this one at the Met Police, and I really loved it. I loved the lady who was an Irish lady, and she was just absolutely great. I was 100% sure I had the job. There was absolutely no doubt in my mind. So I go back to work, and I get a phone call saying I didn't get the job. And I was absolutely, utterly thrown, because I've never felt so certain about anything in my entire life. So I stopped looking for every other job. I gave up everything because I was totally confused. I have never been that certain, and I was never that confused before about the whole scenario. So, going into that dizziness, and I just let go of everything. I didn't look for another job. I went on holiday to South Africa for a month. And while I was there, I get the phone call not too far into it. Just say a week, no, maybe even 3 or 4 days into going to South Africa, I get this phone call saying, "Oh, this is the agent." The agent says, "Oh, you know that Met Police job you had? Well, the guy that they hired, his wife's just got pregnant and he's going back to South Africa. He happened to be a South African too. And you've got the job." So I immediately phoned my boss at Chase Manhattan, gave them a month's notice, and the instant I came back from my holiday, I walked straight into the new job. No delays.
Wow.
Nice.
Nothing. And I had an incredible relationship with my boss and the whole team and all the rest of it.
So sometimes
I
even
actually
though what
stayed
I'm
there for
hearing,
7 years. I was in the Met Police for
Oh,
7
wow.
years.
so even sometimes on the outside when it looks like you're not getting what you've asked for, you have to trust because you had that feeling, and that's what
Yeah.
was so confusing is the external was not seeming to sync up,
Yeah.
but then it turned out that it worked out in your favor.
Gave me a month's holiday. And
Right?
the instant I walked back, there were so many, bits and pieces of the puzzle that were fitting together. This was even before LOA, I mean,
Yes.
I had a very spiritual world even long before LOA came
Well,
along.
I mean, the LOA was operating. You just didn't know about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, the awareness. I mean, and I'm not saying
Right.
I had
It's
conscious
interesting.
Abram Hicks awareness of
Right,
how
right.
it all worked at the time. I
Yeah.
had other levels of awareness there, but I must admit, LOA has been so key to my entire future spiritual development.
Yes.
I mean, it's now a key foundational point of moving
It's so
forward.
applicable.
It's a very practical, down to earth, non-religion,
Right.
dogma, non anything specific. So
Jeffrey
I love
Mason.
also that you're talking about that feeling because I've sent my book out now. I've queried more agents in the last month than I have in 20
yeah,
years.
it sounds like it, Amy.
And there are
Watching
there
your
are
Facebook.
several agents right now I just have that feeling with, one in particular who has my work where I'm almost positive that this is the person that I should be working with. So it's interesting that you have that story because there's that part of me though that just wants to stay non-attached and know that the feeling that I have right now is alignment with the intentions that I've set, and to not get too caught up in trying to project how that's going to manifest externally. So it's I'm like right there with you. So you even saying that to me, I needed that little bit of a reminder because I'm going through that right now where my mind is starting to try to attach and project that this is what this means. This feeling means this, instead of just saying, this feeling means I've never been closer to having this intention manifested in reality. I am not the one to figure out the how and the who and the why. And that is a wonderful reminder, I think, for everyone. Is you are the one that sets the intention, but you've got to collaborate with the universe, your higher self, whatever label you want to give it is fine. But that intelligent field outside of you that organizes all of this, the law of attraction, and it will give you something even better than what you've asked for most of the time if you kind of get out of the way.
So, Amy, I wanted to point out something. As an IT contractor, and you remember I was saying I'd been to so many interviews, etc. Now, there's a philosophy that I'd built up along the way, and the philosophy was this: you never stop going for your next interview.
Right.
You just carry on going for the next one, and you don't care about any of the ones that you've been through. You're
Right.
caring about the next interview. And when I got refused for the Met Police, I stopped. So even my basic principle and my philosophy was thrown out the window, and I couldn't, even if I wanted to, go for another interview. It was that was it. That job was mine, and I don't understand what's going on.
Wow, I love that.
What do you guys think of?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Walt.
What do you think of? What do you think of Jeffrey's comment that it's great to have many beneficial feel-good options going on at the same time?
Yes, we love that. The more feel-good options there are, the easier it is to stay in alignment.
I think there's also a side message that goes along with it, which is there are always many beneficial feel-good options. The question is, are we noticing what they are and that they're there?
Yes. Absolutely. Even
That's
in our
usually
lowest moments, like, me this year when I was in a lot of physical pain and it was hard for me to feel good physically, I would
Mhm.
really work very hard on going, but we've got this beautiful home that we've just moved into and finding all of the blessings and beautiful things that I have going on. And it would very quickly shift my energy. The only time I really want to shift is when I can feel that negative momentum starting to suck me down because I know the longer I stay there, the deeper it's going to go and the harder it is to climb up out of it.
Now, here's an interesting question along the lines of what you were just talking about there. You've hit on this point a few times, and it's been a good point. The overall topic we're starting the show with is the idea that there's no such thing as impossible unless you think it's impossible. That's not the way you phrased it, but that's the gist of it.
Right.
So if we are in a situation where we're near the bottom of that hill, so to speak, and
Yes.
that rock is rolling toward us, there's the tendency on one hand to say, get out of the way, which is I think the smart thing to do. But there's another piece that says, yeah, but well, all that really means is that I'm considering it to be impossible. So I'm making it impossible.
Right.
So what do you think? How do you resolve that apparent paradox?
I think for me to resolve that paradox is that belief that's rolling down the hill, that's already about to crush you. It's already there. Get out of its way. Start with a new one. I think it's like trying to take the canoe upstream.
Mm-hmm.
It's just easier to go downstream. So when you find yourself in that position, it's perfect to say, hey, that rock coming towards me, that just showed me what a heavy momentum I have going about this thing, fill in the blank.
Sure.
And then it's a really great starting point for you to start. Every day is a new day. You can, now sometimes we can't notice those things until they're literally smacking us upside the head. And so again, it's almost like a positive when those things happen because they really do point out to us we may have a limiting belief that we didn't even realize that we have until that thing happens. So my best advice would be get out of the way. I mean, unless you want to get steamrolled, that's okay too.
Well, I think there's also a secondary message that goes in there, which is that, like you said, the smart, get out of the way. It's not like you have to stay there, but there's also a limiting belief in there, isn't there?
Yes.
The limiting belief is, well, I should be able to stop this one, so I better stop this one. Otherwise, I will never have another opportunity the rest of my life.
Well,
which of course isn't true.
What you'll be surprised is it's layers of beliefs usually, and the bigger the thing is that you want. And the longer you've wanted it, there's usually many, many layers of beliefs now that are layered on. So don't think you're just going to remove one belief and that's going to be it. Usually you'll find one and then you're going to find another one that's attached to it. But eventually you will dig down to the root of it and be able to root it up out and things start flowing so much easier. What do you think, Louie?
Well, let me put it in perspective. I've done white river rafting. After that, you don't think about going upstream anymore.
This is true.
Never. You just stay focused ahead and keep going. I just took one of my best friends 2 years ago. It was so much fun.
I did it in the mighty Zambezi at Victoria Falls.
Ooh, yeah.
A few times, and it's what an adventure. I mean,
it's amazing.
You want to take yourself on a trip.
Yeah.
It also occurs to me too that when you're trying to when you're trying to identify how am I going to fix this, how can I use my powers to stop this rock rolling down the hill? It's kind of like trying to figure out which Jenga block to pull out without crashing the tower. At some point you have to say, I'm going to walk away from the tower. It's just let
me build a new tower.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I think another solid point too is don't ever try coming up with solutions when you were in the middle of experiencing the emotional reaction to the problem.
Good point. I like that.
So when you're having that moment, you want to basically do something that feels good to help shift your energy, but that gets your mind completely off of that topic. As while you were experiencing, I remember with the LOA Today app in the beginning, and I know we've all had these sticking points. And go for a walk, go whitewater rafting, go do something. And then all of a sudden, an inspired thought, the solution will present itself so easily to you.
Yes, it's either the shower fairy or the sleep fairy or the nature fairy, or so some one of those fairies will actually deliver the message to you at the time that you least expect it.
Right.
That's true. And Jeffrey wanted to
Well,
mention
I-
he also rafted the Zambezi just
Oh,
Yeah, I'm
nice.
fascinated that Jeffrey's actually done that because very few people I know have done it. Actually, I don't know
Because that
anybody
is
else
very specific.
that's done it besides family. It's an amazing place, the Victoria Falls. If ever you guys get a chance to go there, we got married there, so
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah,
so
picturesque wedding.
at 5 o'clock in the morning, as the sun was rising, we were outside the hotel, and there were two little birds on top. But somebody gave the words, which were very carefully orchestrated, and it was just a really, really amazing experience. You have no idea. But when I was there, I just wanted to bring this up. We did elephant riding. We did walking with
Wow.
the white lions.
Wow.
We did game traveling. We flew with a microlight over the Victoria Falls.
Oh
You know,
my.
it's one of the 7 natural wonders of the world because it's a 2
Your
kilometer
your marriage was like an adventure all in itself.
It was
That is super cool.
that wedding. Ooh.
And you know, we obviously did the White River rafting as well. So you know,
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of things you can do. If anybody ever gets a chance to go to Vic Falls, it's relatively cheap. You know, using Zimbabwean exchange rate. But it is worth it. If anybody really wants to get a taste of Africa and you really want to fit in quite a few little things, Victoria Falls is
Victoria
an
Falls.
amazing place. Amazing place.
There's an endorsement for you. I like that.
Jeffrey lived in Botswana for 2 years. That's
He did.
just bordering on Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
One of the better countries to live in Africa. They've done very well, Botswana.
They
Incredibly
have.
well
Yeah,
for
that country's done
themselves.
really, really well, actually. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's get back to the original topic for the last few minutes because we've been touching on it all along. I mean,
Yes.
it's not. Oh, well, actually, Jeffrey has one more question. I got to bring this one in. Did you do the Gorgeous Swing Adventures too? He wants to know.
No, I didn't.
Didn't do that.
I've still
Okay.
got something left.
Gotta
Bungee
save it,
jumping
right?
off the bridge that goes over there. Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
But getting back to the original topic of limitations and belief systems, I don't know that we can ever achieve the state of having no limitations in our thought process. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
Right.
So,
That's the contrast.
yeah, that's part of the contrast.
Contrast comes from, yes.
But I think it's fair to say we can pick and choose which limitations we're going to go with. And I think that's kind of really what you were driving at with your first blog post there that you
Yes.
wrote, no, a time ago, that it's really about being selective. And
It
the
is.
selectivity is what makes the life be under your own control, under your own power.
Yeah, and it really is the foundational aspect of everything we're talking about here is taking ownership that you're mastering your mind and your thoughts and your emotions is the key to the rest of it. And understanding that everything you're experiencing, you are creating whether you're conscious of it or not. And so if there are things that you aren't attaining and you're unhappy, instead of blaming and victimizing yourself over it, understanding whether you realize it or not, you do have the power to achieve those things. So don't give up on them if you really want them. So make that list and take small actions every day. But the first thing you got to do is clean up your thinking. You've got to get to the root of what are the beliefs, the limiting beliefs that you hold. And they can, until you really even take ownership that there's this thing that you want, that you've got all these excuses around, you're not going to find that there's a limiting belief behind it. So it's a bit of homework for everyone.
Well, it is. And the reason I brought up the whole idea that there's always going to be limiting beliefs is I don't want us to be afraid of limiting beliefs. We do have that tendency. Everybody who talks about, oh, no, you got limiting beliefs in the way. There's something terrible going on here. No, there's nothing terrible about having limiting beliefs. We all have them all the time.
Right.
So the question isn't how we have these bad limiting beliefs. The question is, which limiting beliefs do we want? Which ones are we wanting to get rid of?
Right. I think if they're getting in the way of things that really you truly in your heart want to achieve, want to experience, then it's definitely something worth investigating. That's for sure.
I mean, we make the joke often, but here's another example of it. If you don't have any limiting beliefs, you're dead. I mean, seriously, that's just where it's at. At that point, you are now back in unlimited source energy. But until then, you're living in this limited experience, limited body experience, this weekend adventure, as the stream calls it. And, that's part of that's what you bought on the package tour.
Yeah, instead of calling it problems, I call them challenges. It's the way the word choice makes a big difference to me. And the way that I perceive it, I feel like Earth is almost like this. It's a really hard obstacle course. Paradise, it can be hell. It can be pretty much anything that you project it to be. But we came down here to experience the variety and the contrast and all of it. So we don't want to just be in this little safe little corner where everything's perfect. Nobody's trying to say that. But you also don't want to be locked up in a bubble where you feel like you're in a prison or hell, because there are people that feel this way. They're like robots or zombies, I compare them to. They go to work, they do a certain function, they come home, they watch TV, they zonk out, rinse and repeat, and they're not really getting the opportunity to experience life to its fullest.
Yeah, that's true. I do want to take a moment to remind people to use the LOA Today app to send in your comments, questions, ideas, because we want to incorporate them into the show. And if you have any experiences that you've had that kind of illustrate what we were talking about today, about the importance of recognizing the actual role that limiting beliefs play, and being selective about them, and how you had XYZ experience that sent you down to the depths, and down in the depths you said, you know what, I'm not going to allow this to bug me. And sure enough, about 10 minutes later, something else changed. Send in some stories like that, because we're sharing our stories, but we like to hear your stories as well. So send them in there. If you have questions too, by the way, send questions in, because we love questions. And we're going to be sticking with the warrior rules. That's what you call them, right? We're going to be sticking with warrior rules for a while.
Wisdom Warrior Press is the name of our Word Warrior Press. I'm sorry, is the name of the blog. I actually put it in the if people click on just the blog link that I'll be putting with each video, so they can go read the blog post if they want to, and they can see the challenge there. So it's right there for them. So and they can all, and then the video is the three of us kind of discussing it. And so they also have an experiment, a little piece of homework to do to start applying these to their own lives. And then, like you said, let's hear their wins or their stories as they do this and get them involved.
Because that's the fun part.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to ask each of you very quickly, and this is going to be spur of the moment. You guys haven't had any time to think about this, but I want each of you to just name one thing. It could be mundane, it could be very simple, that you're going to manifest in the next 48 hours, and we're going to check back next week and see if it happens. So, Amy, I'm going to go to you first. Just anything. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just pick something that you think.
Okay, in the next 48 hours, I am going to get a novel that I really want, like something from someone else that I want to read.
Nice. Okay, Louis, can you think of anything that you can manifest in 48 hours that just helps to illustrate the point?
I was just watching Amy's Warrior Post #1, and there's a picture there of a guy sitting in kind of like a cave or like a tent, and that reminded me of a sweat lodge that I've been in. So I really want to try and manifest within the next week, which is not what the club says it's going to be. I want to get into a sauna or jacuzzi.
I love it.
We'll see what we can do.
That sounds good. Let's see. I think in what I'm going to manifest in the next. We said within the next. I said 48 hours. You said a week. Well, no. So somewhere in there.
Right.
I'm going to actually say within the next 48 to 72 hours that we have a lot of rain in the forecast, and that rain's going to go away. So I'm going to manifest sunny skies over the next 48 to 72 hours for our gardening crew to be out there and doing their stuff.
Okay, great.
All right.
Great.
So, all right, now we got something to check on next week. So thank you guys very much for, first of all, Amy, thank you for bringing in the topic, because that was a great topic. And thanks we got some good stories going today. That was really good. We got to keep bringing those stories in. So yeah, I want to encourage you guys to keep doing that. And people send in your comments and your stories as well, because they're really wonderful. Jeffrey says he's still waiting for his slingshot. So Jeffrey, stay on top of that with us. Anyway, thank you very much, guys. Thank you, podcast listeners. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.